G'day. How many of you actually know what a graphic designer does in television? That's a good answer. I work in TV. I am what was my last job? Computer consultant, technician, playback operator. Jake, on a call sheet, was once written like this. I work in TV designing graphics, so whenever you see someone go, let's go look at the website for that, let's go into the database, I'm the person who designs it. How many of you watch films and go, that's not real? Raise your hand. Welcome to my world. Anyone watch a show called Rush? Seen it filmed. I worked on that show for 4 years. Before I got there, there was amazing wrong things with that show. So much so that I turned it believable that the cops actually wanted to borrow our system. I had to explain to them it was all built in Flash. For the last 10 years, I've been trying to change the industry, which is, as a graphic designer and an IT person and a game understander, is that a lot of scriptwriters have no clue how technology works. So for 10 years, I've been trying to change the industry. It's a hard job because a lot of the time when I get brought in, it's 2 days before production. And it's like, Jake, here's the script, build the stuff. How many of you, and I describe it as, anyone watch Iron Man and go, that's not a believable file system? If I was there, I would have changed that. Rush is one of the first shows, and Australian industry is very hard to get into. It's one of those places now where we're slowly understanding that when you watch a TV show and someone gets an email and doesn't work the right way, you sit there and go, that's not believable. So that's what I do for a living. Amongst other things, I argue with several people in the marketing faculty about social media at the moment, because let's face it, you guys are the next generation. I'm one of 2 people in Melbourne that do my job. In the next 10 years, I'm hoping half of you are willing to do it. And John, if you ever see him running around, has been working for me, and he'll complain it too. A lot of the time, as IT people, the industry doesn't understand actually how it works. They don't have any clue about technology. I just finished on a film called Underground. Has anyone seen it? It's meant to be on Channel 10. It's set in the 80s, back with hackers, Julian Assange, things like that. I spent a lot of my time trying to teach the actor how to use a Commodore 64. Anyone of you actually ever played with a Commodore 64? Yes! First question he asked me was, would you like to take a guess? Where's the mouse? And I had to sit there and go, you're so young. I'm sorry, mate, there's no mouse. Everything's command-based. He goes, what the hell does that mean? In the industry, especially in the TV industry, having IT knowledge is an important skill these days. So that's roughly what we're going to talk. I have lots of stories to tell you. I've been working for 10 years. I can tell you interesting things. If we don't film it, I can tell you more interesting things. So that's my presentation, which will be 15 minutes from now. In here, bring questions. I'll tell you what I build in. How many of you build in Flash? Yes, that's exactly the noise we make when we do it. How many of you can actually do like C++? That's good because a lot of us are now using Windows 8 phones, Windows 7 phones. We're using, the industry loves Apple, which annoys the hell out of me. So we're actually looking at people who can build iPhone apps for the sort of job. And it's another route to go for games development. So 15, 20 minutes, we'll tell stories.
Well, thank you, Jake. Round of applause, guys.
So yeah, what I was explaining to a lot of people in the break was that I work in this wonderful world where television is wonderful, but let's face it, everyone thinks that, a scriptwriter thinks that a computer just goes on. But I create things like this. That is the set from Rush. That was 7 screens. And when I started the show, I was literally brought into the set and they went, make that work. Make it look like it's a believable sort of command center thing. Now, anyone want to guess how someone does that? Don't laugh. We had discussions about taking it like Matrix. I actually, in season 1, that was run by 4 laptops, 2 computers, and 1 double out computer, which I had to control from a very dark room that looks like that. It was under a stairwell that every time everyone walked on the stairwell, dust would land on me. Yeah, the stool is in place of where I could stand. You couldn't sit and operate at the same time. So I invented a machine that does 8 screens that comes out of it. One machine, 8 screens, wireless. And one of the reasons I kind of wanted to do it is so I could do this. That's me appearing in the back of shot. And again, and again. Yeah, as my friends went, you look really creepy in the background just standing there staring at people. And trust me, the actors found it amusing as well. They actually, by season 3, were trying to get me into shot. This one was because Nicole wanted me to get in shot. And she goes, we're doing it for your mum. Come on, Jake. Your mum wants to see you. Things like this, you know, I build things like this for different screens, and they are each individual. They're all built in Flash. And the reason I build in Flash is because it's one file. The hardest thing about the TV industry is training people how to operate files. And I did do the Homer Simpson thing of build the any key system. I built code that would, if you hit any key on the keyboard, it would type accordingly. If you hit enter, it would do a certain function. You could click and act like it's a real website. And the reason that was is because the more interactive, the more realistic something is, the more the actor enjoys working with it. Now, that's about my presentation. I love questions, so we're going to run people around, if we can get someone to run around, or scream. Anyone have a question?
Hey, I've been watching some shows that are looking at things that are in the future. So I think there's a new show, Continuum, that's got some really cool stuff. How would you kind of make that scene and that?
Yeah, I watch Continuum too, and I actually like it for that reason. It starts with what is believable now and taking a next logical step. So on Continuum, they do lots of things which are heads-up displays. That's been around. That idea has been around since Tron 1. And Tron, do you know Tron 1 was made? 1980. If you ever watched Tron, and I suggest watching it, it's an awesome film, don't mock it. They had a computer screen inside a desk. And it's, how many of you would like that today? How many of you have got that today? You probably do if you look at it, because you've got Microsoft Surface. Has anyone played with Microsoft Surface? Microsoft Surface, and not the one that's coming out as Windows 8, but the old Microsoft Surface was literally a tabletop that can do that. So when it comes to a logical step, looking at what can be done, researching what's can be believable, and sometimes it's just the scriptwriter makes something up. And literally it'll be, we want this done, can you make it, how believable is it? So that's where you go, you look at what ideas for technology are, and you take a next logical leap for it. That's how we design stuff like that. And next question? We're gonna make the guy run.
How did you get into like this kind of job into the industry?
How I got in was a friend of mine was doing ad hoc tech support at the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. His office where he was working from was next door to a production office, and they walked up to him going, hey Michael, do you know anyone who has like a spare day who can set up some computers? That was my step in. Once I got there, you need to build relationships. Everything in the games industry, everything in IT, everything in film and television, almost every job you can ever get is built on your relationships with people. If you're kind of a dick to someone, they don't want to work with you again. Be helpful. So I was on this set, and I literally just was watching something, and it was a really bad ABC program called Loot. It was a telemovie about a forensic accountant. Don't ask. A forensic accountant, which I learnt on the day, was someone, after a business goes out, they go and search for where all the money went. I know, thrilling production. You're surprised there aren't more episodes like this. But I was sitting there, and they had a scene where a secretary was pretending to write something, and it was literally in back of shot, and it was a static screen of Word. And I went, you know, give me 10 minutes, I can have her type into that at least. And the production manager was like, oh, that's awesome, thanks, did it. Took me 2 minutes, did it, and then never thought of it again. Was sitting there one day, my phone rang, and it started with this. Hi, Jake, my name's Jen. I worked with you on this show. I've got working on another show. Do you mind coming in and discussing to my boss how to do things like that? And you slowly build a reputation. Nowadays, it's actually a lot easier. For you guys, I would say cold call. If you want to get into this industry, look at the closing credits and sort of call up the offers. I work on Offspring, I've worked on Rush, I just finished up on a film called Underground. I worked on the Kath and Kim movie. Yeah, it was literally, email comes in with screens, and then 20 minutes later I got a phone call from the boss going, hey Jake, so you got the email, can you have this ready by Tuesday? And I'm like, what am I doing? And they're like, oh, didn't I explain that in the email? And there was a 30-minute conversation of what I had to do. Everything's based on reputation. And apparently if you're about my size, bald, it seems to be the best way. Because on Underground, I worked with a guy who was exactly my clone. I'm kidding you. I met him, I was like, you're my nemesis because you're slightly taller, slightly pudgier, but we look exactly the same. It was like parallel worlds. Hopefully that answered your question. Any next question? Raise your hand. Make the guy run around. Ah, there's one. No? No questions? TV is not a glamorous job. I will tell you stories. They are very long days. We sometimes start at 6 in the morning and we finish at 6 o'clock at night. So you don't see natural daylight some days and you are stuck in a very dark room. I've spent much time. This one I spent under that desk for several hours. Ironically, most of the stuff on that desk is mine, including the monitors. The Spider-Man poster is mine. Everything, I think, the beer might not be mine, but most things on that desk were mine. I know, you're not allowed to drink while working. Rush, I spent much time underneath a desk, more than I spent on the desk. And most of my time I spent in that cupboard. It's not the glamorous job. TV is hard. It's long hours and you're exhausted, but you know, you get to have your name up on pretty lights. Any questions? No? Last time we did this, we had heaps of questions.
When you're working on shows like CSI or NCIS, how do you do all like the tracking system, for instance, when people are like trying to get this database?
Facial recognition stuff. I put a file up there. My friends hate and love me at the same time. Worst thing to do in the industry is try to write a list of names of results. The second worst thing to do is get pictures of people. Because when you do a facial recognition software, you can't sit there and go, well, we found the guy within 10 seconds. The show needs to look like you found the guy in 10 seconds, but you need to rush through about 20, 30 pictures. My friends hate me because I go, can I have you up against that wall for 3 minutes? And they go, why? I just need a photo. Facial recognition software starts, and let's not talk about CSI, because let's face it, that show is bullshit. NCIS is even worse at times. It is. I watch that show religiously, and I sit there and go, Abby's full of crap. I'm sorry. A fight started? No. I'm hating it because it's wrong. When I watched Iron Man, the one thing that took me out of Iron Man, I believed a guy could build a robotic suit that lets him fly. The thing that took me out was when Gwyneth Paltrow's character of Penny Potts was stealing files from The Secret. Pepper, you know. When she was stealing files, I was like, wrong. You know, it's one of those things. Facial recognition software exists. It's not as accurate as you think, and the reason is if you ever watch Burn Notice, they explain it to you. When you do facial recognition software, it needs to measure eyes, distance, nose, all ears, everything. You need a front-on photo. How many of you have ever seen a front-on photo willingly taken by someone? Never. So you could never actually get 100% accurate, which is why when we did on Rush, I always made them about 86% accurate. What you do is you have to look at what exists. Same with identikit stuff. It's one of those weird things. You go about the place and you go, okay, what have we done? Why have we done it this way? You see what other shows have done. So yes, you watch CSI and NCIS and you go, what's believable forensics? And then you go, okay, what do we need to do? The hardest thing about that is plot point. Everything I've built for Rush probably takes me about 3-4 hours to do it. Probably gets on screen. Any of those things gets on screen for maybe 30 seconds at most. They'll shoot it for about a whole day. We'll spend a whole day in the ops room when we were doing the show for maybe 4 minutes of film time. Like literally probably 4 or 5 minutes of film. it just needs to get the point across, and that's the other thing you need to consider. What are we getting across? Questions? No. I'll make the guy run around. I'm going to take this off. Don't make him work hard.
What's probably the worst sort of inaccuracy you've ever seen in a show that you can think of?
Deleting files. Deleting files is always the worst inaccuracy. We need to make sure we scrape the files properly. Hit, type up, delete all files, enter. I've had to do it once. Second most thing, and I've stopped it, I've actually sat there and smacked a scriptwriter once. Not smacked, but went enhance, enhance, enhance. Ever watched a show when they go, just zoom in on that, and it's a perfect crisp thing? I've had to do it. I've had to fake it very closely once, and I blurred the image for my safety and my own reasoning. It was on City Homicide. We were doing a webcam episode where there were 3 active webcams in the room, and we had to shoot it live for the actors, and then play it back. So when you cut to the screen, it actually came up on screen as a security system. We actually use security software. It's much easier that way. But enhance is the worst thing I've ever had to do, and I feel ashamed to admit that. I've worked on shows where they wanted live websites, where like a live MySpace page, but they didn't want to make it live because the show wasn't going to be released for another year. And trying to explain to someone how you can't run a live website because it doesn't work that way, because A, you didn't have internet connection, but B, more importantly, is once it goes up live, it means people will be able to see it. Took a good long 30 minutes, longer than it should have. Any other questions? Oh, back in the front row. I'll go. Back. Let's make the guy run.
What do you believe was the most convincing movie, like Matrix and stuff? Do you reckon there was a possibility that could be real?
The Matrix itself, entirely possible if we believe that we can build machines intelligent than us. I think Minority Report, despite it being a horrible film, the technology actually is getting there. In Minority Report, especially when advertising was matching to your eye lines, so it would adjust for who you are, is the step before what social media is now. How many of you look at Facebook and go, why is this ad pointed at me? Play a fun game with Facebook. Change your relationship status to engaged, and watch it suddenly give you like wedding chapels and things like that. Change yourself to female, or women change yourselves to male, and see what the advertising changes. It's scary, but social media is becoming that step of Facebook knows more about you than probably your parents do. And that is a possibility we talk about when we describe, especially on cop shows and detective shows and things like that, what can we get out of the technology? Because often the scriptwriter will write, well, how do I get this information? And anyone watch Person of Interest? Look up a show called Person of Interest. It's about how there's a back-end system into like the CIA database, and it says it's a computer program that analyzes every camera, every social interaction, and can determine if you're in danger or not. That's quite believable because there's a lot of information that you guys put on Facebook. How many of you have private settings on Facebook? Are they private from your parents? Why? Because you're afraid of what they'll see. Trust me, it's hilarious. I teach social media to a bunch of uni students as well, and it's one of those weird things of the first thing I go to them is, how many of you have privacy settings? And it's like, what do you mean by privacy settings? And I always talk to the girls about this. I'm going, you know how many photos of you are probably up on the internet you don't want, let alone your parents to see? Things like that are important. The industry, especially in creating interactive props, is becoming one of those. You have to become a general IT knowledgeist. I just finished on a film called Underground. It's set in 1988. How many of you were alive then? Not one of you. One. Really? 1988? That means you were born in 500 and something squiggle L, and you travel back and forth. You might have been around. Hell, I was. Commodore 64. Do any of you know about Commodore 64? Yes. Why do you play with them? And I'm not talking emulators. Actually own a Commodore 64? For the good times. Two things were really funny about working on this show. We were playing with Commodore 64s. If you were the actor, he's sitting there going, wow, that's like huge. It takes up a whole desk. If you were every member of crew, you'd walk in and go, oh my God, I love a Commodore 64. I played this game. Oh, what'd you play? International Karate. I'm like, what the hell was that? I only played summer games. And there was 14 different debates over what games were on this. Because you could get this nostalgia thing. But the hardest thing for us was to actually find accuracy, because nowadays from the 90s onwards, you can find photos of computer screens and you can match it. Trying to think about hacking in binary and things like that when you don't actually have a reference point. It's really hard. We found this really old hacker who we can't mention his name because he might still not be hacking or something. But he wrote code for us that we could display. It's the hardest thing. And as we move forward, there's what's in the industry known as the period drama. So we love like the 18th, 19th century, back in Outback Oz and things like that. 10 years from now, the period drama will be the 70s and the 80s. And it's becoming one of those technologies where you need to be aware of this stuff. So you're at the right time. I've had to make, Space Invader games for people to play because it needs to be played. Questions? Oh, I got him.
How much stuff do you fake over doing real stuff?
Define that real stuff.
Systems that are kind of nearly what we could use today. So the front end of person of interest.
I would say everything is about 90% real. I work on Offspring, and it's always great because we had to fake up Skype, which was really easy because I just screen grabbed Skype and then adjusted accordingly. Email is one of the biggest things I do. Hardest thing to write on an email program is the time. I worked on a show called Conspiracy 365. Anyone seen it? It was filmed everywhere. That was a good 9 months of work. Conspiracy 365, there was a bit where Cal goes into a doctor's office, and I loved it because he was drugged out, and he writes an email to his friend from the doctor's thing and then deletes the email and then deletes from the deleted items, which is about 18 steps. It literally had, I saw it the other day, it had about 5 seconds of airtime. And you have to design the way that's realistic, but you can jump steps if needed. So you need to look realistic at least. So you'll always base the screen in reality. If you're told otherwise or you're given something, you can get away with. Rush, we could fake stuff. Phone tracking. Anyone watch TV shows when they're trying to trace the call? How many of you believe that's how long it takes? That's good because it doesn't. You know actually how you trace a call in Australia? There is a department in Telstra. You bring, I was told once, it's $500 and a court order. And they can track any phone as long as it's on. And literally, they know where you are right now. They can locate you right now because the GPS in your phone, because the towers you're attached to, and the strength, they can say you're in this building right now. But they can't legally track you without a court order. On TV, how does tracking work? It's like, keep them on the line. We're trying to get there. We're trying to track where they are. It's not drama if you sit there and go, he's here. It's not. We've got a big map. And trust me, I did this because it was hilarious, but it was, let's start with a big wide map of Melbourne. And then we'll zoom in on a box and say it's this place and zoom the map in and then track it again and zoom the map in. Because you need drama and you need like lines going across so it looks frantic. That's when we fake the screen. The screen that we've got on the left there is a tracking of the vehicles. That's believable because it's a GPS system. Is that accurate? Probably not. The screen on the right is all the incidents that are happening, like all the phone calls. If you looked at that map, there are about 14 flashing dots every second going up and down that screen. That means there is some kind of fire, ambulance, or crime happening in Melbourne. Now, admittedly, it's believable in the western suburbs, but not so much when I got to like Burwood and Bentley and things like that. In a wide shot on TV, it needs to look like something's happening constantly. The top screen there are surveillance footage. It's literally the camera department went to the street down and just turned different directions and gave us like 10-second loops of video. It needs to look believable because it has to look believable. But is it? No. The screen on the right there, I love this screen. This was the most famous screen on Rush. It got in almost every episode. It's all the incidents. It's actually like a binary list of things. The screen on the left is absolute crap. We didn't even know it was. We just liked the color scheme of it, so we used it. I kid you not. I did that. I've got, these are my 2 famous screens from Rush. Have no clue what's on them. Spelling errors. I had actors going, Jake, you really can't spell. I go, what do you mean? They're going, how do you spell Footscray? I'm, I don't know. It just needs to be in the space. Proofreading is an important skill. I don't do it. I've had art directors send me stuff. It's got on screen, and then the editors call me up and go, you know you've misspelled sergeant. And I'm going, I just copy and paste. As I said, writing lists is the hardest thing. My friends hate me. They've appeared as criminals, as emails. I've got a friend as a joke because someone she worked with noticed her name on Offspring. So we took that friend's name and put it into another episode. Friend didn't even notice. We had to call up and go, you know your name was an Offspring. Things like that you have to base in reality and work from there. Next question. Oh, where's my front row? Back corner? You've had one already.
Since you're so up to date with all current technologies and stuff, a game that was recently announced that they're making is called Watch Dogs. If you've heard of it at all.
No.
Oh, it's basically a game about that Ubisoft is creating. It's about computer system was installed into America to monitor everything.
Oh, so it's a person of interest computer then.
Sort of, but not at the same time because it keeps everything in check, all viruses, all. It's not.
How do we know that doesn't already exist?
I don't. That's just it. But it's in America. I don't care.
What's your question? Do I know about it?
I was just wondering how possible would it be, because they also had private companies that owned it, and then they sent out agents who would be able to cut off people's phone signals.
You'd be surprised.
Literally track people with a phone out. You'd be able to highlight over them, and you'd be able to see HIV positive. And that person is calling so-and-so. That person is calling so-and-so.
There is a logic structure to that. It's a good storytelling technique, and it is believable because how many of you are on Facebook? Raise your hand. Keep your hand up if you have a mobile phone. Keep your hand up if you, in the morning, the first thing you do is check Facebook. Oh, well, let's see. How many of you use check-in on Facebook? When you check into a location, or Twitter, or Foursquare, or Gowalla, or all those places. Foursquare is just basically Facebook check-in. All that information is publicly held somewhere, and if a company was clever enough, they would, well, that's what Facebook does, is they want to keep that information for marketing purposes, where you are the product. It is entirely possible that the government, could illegally get that information, or legally. The Patriot Act does exist in the US. I'm not going to question it. If the government is watching, I believe everything is fine. It's possible. Your medical records are kept. You have a reference number. IT is one of those wonderful things that if we use it well, it's really good for information. You know a lot more about your friends' lives thanks to Facebook, probably a lot more than you need to know. There was a joke last week when Instagram went down and there was a big meme photo that said, it's a guy on the phone going, Instagram's down, describe me your lunch. It's true. I see so many photos a day of people taking photos of food or cars for some reason on Instagram. I'm like, I get it, but I don't care. Look, I bake a lot of foods. Yeah, when you work as a contractor, you need to find an outlet that's creative and hopefully delicious at the same time. So I bake a lot of food, and my friends go, you really need to quit whatever job you're doing and just continue on baking. But that's about me taking photos. But yes, it's entirely possible. I would believe it. There's a TV show that already does it. It's called Person of Interest. I would love to work on that show because Jesus is on it, as in Jim Caviezel. He played Jesus. He was Jesus in Passion of the Christ. You know, it's Jesus and the guy from Lost. You can't go wrong. It's creepy in every way.
Do you ever get much free food?
Yes. It's one of the worst things ever about working in TV because the union's great. You have to have 3 meals on set. You get breakfast, lunch, and afternoon tea. And it's mandatory you get these breaks because it's part of the 10-hour work shift. And the food is usually good because the conditions are crap. I've worked in asbestos-ridden buildings. I've worked outside in the rain. The last thing I worked on, we were working in a derelict house, so it was cold, dank, and horrible. So you want a nice hot meal, and yes, you get fat. I remember working on one of the very first shows. I was working in a soundstage, and the groups were doing like chin-ups on different parts of like the set because they're like, I have to keep fit. This place is horrible. The food's just too good. American productions especially, the food is always good.
Have you seen Eagle Eye?
Yes.
Do you think the tracking
Is it
system
possible?
is it possible?
Yeah, look, technology like that exists is entirely possible, but from a story point of view, it's really believable because the UK is like got a CCTV footage on every corner. So it's one of the most watched places in the world. That information goes somewhere, so it's believable. The hardest thing about it is recreating it. For my job, filming stuff like that, filming that screen, so it looped and things like that, took us a day. Admittedly, we used it for 4 years, never really got seen on camera, but it needed to be there. And it's a 5-minute loop of the same video footage, just looping around back and forth. All that technology is believable. The UK does it when there's a crime. They go look at the CCTV footage. And now, if you're talking about, let's go look in the rear vision mirror of that car and flip it and see if we can enhance it, then that's not believable. But everything else is. Next question.
After having this job and being forced to point out these differences and these problems in TV shows, how hard is it for you to actually watch TV?
I watch a lot of TV. I love it. I enjoy it. Sometimes I sit there and go, it's ridiculous. But it's getting better. The worst thing is watch a show from the 80s or the 90s and you sit there and go, no. I've been watching The West Wing, which is 10 years old now. Yes, probably don't remember it. But The West Wing's 10 years old now and someone was watching, like typing an email and literally the email was like 20-point font. I'm sad I know how big font sizes are. I do a lot of marking because I teach as well. And I actually responded to a student, writing in 14-point font doesn't make the essay look any better. It just makes it look bigger. And the quality doesn't improve with size. And everyone went dirty and I went, okay, fair enough. But it's hard to watch older shows. Newer shows is becoming more believable because of the fact that the higher number of the audience understands IT. When you guys watch, when you play games, and you sit there and they make up some kind of crap, you sit there and go, that's not believable. It pulls you out of the game. Same thing on TV. When you watch TV and something's said that's not believable to you, you can't watch the show properly. But I look at it as research.
What's the most unrealistic thing you've ever seen that you wish were real?
Enhance. Actually, no, it was on, I loved it. Does anyone watch Castle? Right, there's an episode of Castle where they've got a picture and they've got like a reflection in a car window, and he goes, "Can't you flip and enhance that?" And everyone responds with, "It's not. It's real life. It's not TV." It's the only time I've seen a script department respond to those kind of things. CSI is the worst show when it comes to it. It's made forensics believable beyond sort of necessity. Like some things they do is very believable, but 24. Anyone watch 24? I can't watch 24 because of the technological jargon they use. It's like open a port that to my screen. I've opened a socket, things like that. I have a friend. Anytime he works as an IT sort of consultant to companies, and every time he has issues with Telstra, he just sits there and goes, "They're pointing to the screen or opening a socket or something like that." And I'm going, "Oh, so Telstra's pissed you off then?" That's the worst show for technology. which is surprising because it's an action drama espionage thing. So yes, those are the worst shows. Question? Oh, here we go.
Where did you study?
Monash. I studied, and this is the funny thing, I always sit there and go, Monash University brings me in because I go, Jake, you're a Monash graduate. I've gone, yeah, but I studied an information systems degree. I'm a trained business analyst. The funny thing is about that is that everything I've learned from, and yes, I was trained as an information systems analyst. I worked on the student newspaper when I was here because I love graphic design. I watch a lot of TV. But the skills I learned in our core subjects taught me how to analyze the industry well. What you learn is problem-solving skills. And it's funny, but I did a lot of multimedia subjects as minors because they didn't have the multimedia degree when I was studying. And it became one of those things of, you can apply problem-solving skills to every industry. You need to be quick on your feet. To build something in TV has very short time frames. I've been given things, my housemate used to go, you look unhappy, it must be Friday. Because at Friday, 5 o'clock, every time I worked on Rush, I would get an email from my boss. And he would go, hey mate, hope your weekend's gonna be good. Here is everything we need for Monday. Which meant I was working Saturday because he would want to see a draft on Sunday. Understanding when you read something in a script and being able to sit there and go, okay, what is this? What steps need to be done? How do we need to get there? Is a skill you need to learn. And a lot of it comes from problem-solving skills. Understanding how to deal with people is hard. The best line I ever got was I was working on Where the Wild Things Are, which, was a good film, not a lot of computers except for one scene. And the director wanted the actress to write into Word anything she wanted, so we actually just created a fake sort of CRT monitor with an LCD screen in it. And then said, it works. It's a perfectly working computer, keyboard with operative, keyboard, mouse, all works exactly how it should work. And she goes, I don't know how to use a computer. And I was like, that's fine, we'll fix it in post. Building relationships with actors is hard. I worked for 4 years on Rush. In that chair, every day I worked was Sam Johnson. Great guy, really good friend, has no clue about how to use a computer. I got him on Facebook 6 months ago, and he's really happy. He's the voice of Vodafone. I keep joking with him and going, you talk about how Vodafone has got like all this ability, it's got all this 3G networking, it's great for Facebook. You don't have a Facebook account, mate. And he goes, I know, isn't it great? And then he showed me his phone, and it's an old Nokia phone. And I'm like, dude, we need to get you a new one. He goes, I've got, you're a spokesman for Vodafone, get them to give you one. You need to build relationships, and you learn those skills through any IT degree. Monash is a good one. Question? Oh, there.
Have you ever tried to make one of those security rooms with 100 monitors?
That was my first adventure into multi-monitors, and in season 1, as I said, it was like 4 laptops. It was a bunch of computers that ran every screen individually. Over summer, I built what my mother described as the octopus, because it was one computer with 8 monitor leads coming out of it, because I had built these quad graphics cards, and you could put 2 in, and then the computer wouldn't blow up. I really do want to build a room that's just a bank of monitors, but you need to convince a company to give you free TVs. Although I was liking it because my accountant claimed I could claim my TV at home because I was using it for work. So I always thought that was good. But yes, I would love to build one. It would take several screens. I run a VNC onto the actual box so I can remote control it from behind. So yeah, next question.
Do you know the game Deus Ex?
Yeah.
Do you believe that stuff could become real?
Like cybernetic stuff?
Yeah.
I think we haven't got the technology there, but I think it's entirely possible. My housemate loves it, and he comes telling me what upgrades he's got. My favorite one was the energy field, so he doesn't crash properly. He kept just for a day, just every time, come here, watch this, jump off a building. Like, you really, really need to do something else. Yeah, I think there will be a time where, and we're moving to it with phones at least, where the smart card technology is built into your SIM card, so you can pay for things with your phone. Like you can go to the vending machines now, SMS to the phone number and get your Coke. And it will become where you can just pay for things, it'll all be one card stuff. That technology is on its way. It's maybe 100 years from now, if we don't kill ourselves, but yeah, I reckon it's there. That's the thing about game developers and game designers. You need to be believable enough that it doesn't take you to this futuristic world. If you ever watch interviews of people that do sci-fi shows, and Minority Report I go back to because back when it came out, it was, admittedly not the best film in the world, but Spielberg spoke to a lot of future designers. And the best example of TV inflicting technologies, you'll have a mobile phone. All of you have a mobile phone. That came from Star Trek. It's true. The idea of the portable device you could communicate with came from Star Trek, the original 1960s Captain Kirk stuff. So it's all possible.
Did you hear about how Google built a supercomputer that could learn? They embedded like over 10 million.
I'm going to state, I believe Google is Skynet. Because seriously, they just want to know everything. Possibly Brainiac if anyone's into Superman. But Google's built cars that drive themselves. And 10 years ago, how many of you would believe that was possible? I haven't heard about them building a computer, but there's all those machines that build chess, that play chess and stuff. We're trying to make androids and things like that, which is I've watched enough sci-fi movies at this point to go, no, that's a really bad idea. Because I just watched Prometheus the other day, bad idea. Alien, bad idea. The only android I think who's worked really well was Bicentennial Man. Oh yeah, bad Robin Williams film. And Data from Star Trek. And then even before we got that, we had Law, so. Question? Oh, back row, back.
Does it annoy you in movies like Avatar and stuff when they have the floating glass screens, which are entirely one color, even though we already have the technology to do glass screens which have multiple color?
I actually think there's the technology for there's plastic that can conduct electricity, and you'll be built-in screens that way. I think that's the next step. I do get annoyed when I see it's just a hologram, because I don't think hologram technology will work ever, because we need that interactivity. Because at the moment everything's touch. How many of you have a touch-based phone? So Android or iPhone, you have a touch-based phone. How many of you actually use your computers other than to type things, or do you use everything on your phone now? I loved it. Someone called me last night. It was the first time in like 10 days someone has called my phone. I was like, we mostly do things through SMS. It's interesting, that kind of concept, when they go one color. It could just be a production design choice, because a lot of the time doing that sort of stuff is really expensive. Anyone watch Terra Nova? Do you know the reason that show got axed? It wasn't because of ratings. The ratings were okay. It was because the technology to actually design the dinosaurs was really expensive. Also because, doing something in Queensland apparently is weird. But that show was really good, but the technology and a lot of the things they had were very believable. They were carrying around touch screens. Doctors now will carry around iPads in hospitals. Within the next 5 years, I reckon that'll be how they do reports and things like that. It's believable, but how we go, and production design is hard. Doing CG work is very expensive because you need to have the actors imagine things. Back when it was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, anyone seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That was the first time they actually hand-drawn animation with live action properly, and they built technology, and they had to train actors not to do this when they were trying to grab someone. If you did this, you had to fill the gap. If you did this, it meant the hand just filled it and you could just go either side of it. Costed like $10,000 per frame or something. Yeah, rotoscoping. Now you just do that all digitally.
What was the hardest thing you had to make and why?
The first thing I ever did was hard because I didn't know the technology. I built an action script. Anyone know what anyone do Flash? How many of you are good at action script? Why are you terrible at it? Because it's action script and you can't be bothered. The hardest thing I had to do was when I was trying to be smarter than I actually was. I found that keeping things simple is sometimes the best way. It might not be elegant, but it worked. The hardest thing I did was tracking stuff, like the phone tracking and facial recognition stuff, because you first had to figure out the logic sequence and then figure out all the different elements. In a tracking screen, like phone tracking, you need to have bars going back and forth that are running on their own loop. But every time you type something in or change something, you need to remember where that was. So you have to figure out the layering structure. It's a logic system. So it's really hard. And the first time you do anything takes 10 hours to do it. The next time it took me 2. But it's trying to get that concept. I worked on a show called Angry Boys. Oh man, that was a pleasurable and most painful time ever in my life. Those were 18-hour days. The Smouse MySpace pages changed their concept from the first time I met in November to the day, literally the 30 seconds before it was meant to be shot, it changed. And it was the hardest thing to work on because we were trying to get, if we didn't get the background right, then it screwed up everything that followed because they were doing YouTube videos, they were doing actual design to match it. And it was a constant negotiation. And I was working 18-hour days and I would go on set all day for 12 hours and change stuff. Then I'd go home with the changes and work for another 6 hours, go back to set. And it was a whole week where I probably worked about 80 hours in some ways. So that was probably the hardest thing I did. Done?
No, give it 5 or 10.
Last 2 questions. You can come find me afterwards. I'll be loitering around.
Is it easier to deal with young actors compared to old actors?
Some yes, some no. Sometimes with the older actors, and when I describe older actors, Sam's 32. It's easier to sit there and go, this is how you say something, this is how you pronounce it, this is how I want you to look. Like, admittedly, he had to look like an IT professional. Like any one of you guys could sit in that desk and know exactly how it works. He had to look like he knew everything that was going on. A lot of the time, I would sit there and go, the director would come in and say, this is the lines, this is what you're saying, this is how I want you to say it. Then I'd walk after and go, on this line, look at this screen. And then on the next line, look at that screen. And then do some typey, clicky action. And then on the middle screen will come this. And then go back to this screen. And then finally this. So he'd sit there and go, fine. He's much easier to train. Younger actors, you sometimes get the problem of, I know how this technology works, and we've developed it differently because the script writing, we've had to cut out 14 steps, or it's not how it's going to work because we can't get the program. Apple iPhone is the most frustrating thing to work with in the industry, but everyone wants to have an iPhone. If I was working on Android phones, great. I can just install Flash, make it work. iPhone, I was doing live web pages, I was doing them as graphics, I was doing them as video, and it required to just sit there and be pre-done, and that's the harder thing. So younger actors, older actors, it depends on the person, really. We'll go with last question.
What's your opinion on it, like a rogue AI scenario, technology taking over the world?
I love the idea. There's a new show that just started called Blackout, and if you've seen Dark Angel, technology will take over the world. It just depends on if we let it. We've got enough sort of Isaac Asimovs and everyone's in there going, worried about Skynet and Terminators and things like that. Every time Google does something different, I always sit there and go, Skynet. It's true. They opened up a social media site. They want to know more about you. It's interesting because we've always got this doomsday idea. I think technology, I was having this great discussion with Michael before about social media and how just because you use it doesn't mean we should respond to you doing it. And I'm of the great belief of, how many of you have met people here that you didn't know before and will probably add them on Facebook tonight? It's the first thing you do. When you meet someone, you no longer ask for their phone number, you just add them on Facebook. Technology has taken over our lives. When we invented fire, technology had taken over our lives because it was keeping us warm. We no longer had to kill furs and things like that. So it's been there, it's been part of our lives. I'm always interested to see what we do develop. And the best way to look at it is look at Star Trek. Star Trek started in the 1960s, and they thought by 1995 we would have had super engineered human beings that have ruled us and we've overthrown them. Futurama is probably the more realistic future we're looking at, where everything's sort of the same. It's all much of muchness. TV's great to look as a historical thing of what we thought the future was going to be, because let's face it, 2015 is when Marty McFly entered the future in Back to the Future 2. I want to see flying cars, power lasers, and hoverboards. That's all I'm saying. They've got 2 years to get this stuff up and running. Who's with me? Thank you. I think we're done, unless we've got one more time. One more question? We're done? I'm taking the lead from you. One more question? I'll do it. Just scream it. Go in the back. As in the Mac computers. I think Apple does really interesting design concept, but the problem is that it's more expensive. I've had this great theory. I don't know what they've done with the Retina display. Is an interesting idea, and I think it pushes where everyone else should follow, but doesn't necessarily mean that they give up a lot of stuff that you have for granted. Like Flash to me is one of the best things ever to use in my industry, because I give one file to the standby props person, they plug it in, they copy it over, they know how it runs. But I can't do it on a Mac, on an iPhone. I can do it on a Mac computer, but not on an iPhone. I think they have interesting ideas, but they're never going to exactly... There always needs to be someone else. There will always be PC, and it's becoming... I had a discussion on Friday with someone going, Mac used to be the choice computer for graphic designers, and it hasn't been that choice for the last 10 years. NVIDIA graphics cards, Radeon graphics cards, because of gaming, have actually improved the graphics card technology for graphic designers to the point where PC is probably better. Because you can do a lot more with PC. You can throw in a lot more RAM. You can render faster than you can with a Mac. Although then again, I have a friend who's an editor and goes, I just want a Mac. It's so pretty and shiny. Thank you. If you've got any questions, I'll be loitering around.
Big round of applause for Jake, guys. Thank you for that, man. We've all found him to be very applicable. As he said, he'll be around,